So currently in Tokyo Ghoul Re, we have two massive manifestations of what seems to be RC cells kind of grown out of control and just this massive abundance of fuckery, to put realistically. One of those beings is Kaneki, who has currently devoured a good portion of the Ogai squad. Mind you, that situation was kind of all planned and brought up by Furuta, who was basically sacrificing the Ogai squad so that Kaneki would overfeed and turn into this massive conglomerate of just RC cells. So Kaneki's, I guess, code name by Furuta is Dragon, and at the moment, Kaneki seems to be completely out of control. He should have no control over this massive body. This kind of makes him a very scary situation because Kaneki prior to this, right, literally 10, 20, 30 odd seconds before he turned into this massive Goliath being, he wanted to fight for the future of ghouls. He wanted to fight for Toka. Unfortunately, to keep himself alive and to not die by the hands of Suzuya and Furuta and Ko and everyone else, he chose to mass cannibalize, which in hindsight is a very bad thing. Once again, we are seeing a new evolution of Kaneki, who is striving very hard to reach his goal, to fight for the people he loves, and there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, this gives him a very bad positioning in multiple different situations because currently his size, potential structure of his mindset, and what he's capable of actually able to do and what he's potentially capable of destroying all puts him on the radar for everyone. His goal to join the human world and the ghoul world is literally trickling by the thinnest of threads right now. And this is evident by the fact that Kaneki himself has cracked the underground of Tokyo basically. And we see this by the final panel of like this, a good portion of the city being completely destroyed with Kaneki kind of coming back up to the surface. And this leads him to a very bad conclusion because obviously prior to this, Kaneki's biggest issue versing investigators is the fact that he didn't want to kill them. He didn't want to put himself in that bad position where if anyone tried to question his morals in terms of, why do you want ghouls and humans to live together, nothing would come back and bite him on the ass. No one could say that, you killed humans before, like, how can we trust you to live with us? So unfortunately, you can see his situation's very dire because if he cannot control this massive mass, which I believe he cannot, he has a lot of things kind of crumbling down around him, metaphorically and realistically. There is, however, one more opponent or one more being that I have yet to mention who is still very unknown to us and we still know nothing about. Not all too long ago, if you guys remember, Aoto was basically underground and he was potentially looking for the remnants of the original One-Eyed King, someone that has basically lived for the past 180 years underground. Now, we don't know how this is possible because ghouls age at the same rate of humans. Realistically, the only way we could think of a ghoul living for this long is that they found a way to kind of keep themselves alive by mass producing their RC count. Basically raising their RC levels to an extent which is extremely dangerous and doesn't force them to age or die. A good example of this is Kaneki's current state. This massive Goliath abundance of RC cells could theoretically stay alive for a mass amount of years, 200 plus years, if he kept feeding on ghouls and kept cannibalizing, and the fact that potentially his aging process would be completely stunted because of the mass amount of RC cells, because that was kind of the ultimatum. It was kind of like you age at a very rapid pace and you start to deteriorate, your body, and you start gaining diseases if you cannot keep your RC level count up and above. And that was obviously the effects of cannibalizing, and if you cannibalize, you kind of go through a different metamorphosis in itself. Kaneki's gone that next step above and has mass cannibalized in a very short amount of time, which has led him to what he is now, this massive blob, basically. Theoretically, you could say that Kaneki could potentially be somewhat immortal until someone kills him. The other person I'm talking about is basically known as the Naga Serpent, which has not been confirmed if that is the original One-Eyed King. However, I believe the connections between those two characters makes perfect sense. I made a theory a couple of days ago talking about, I guess, Furuta's overall plan, and a lot of people kind of disagreed with me in saying that, Furuta wants super peace, but just Furuta's plan in itself, wanting super peace and creating Kaneki so he could convince everyone to fight a common enemy, is not enough. That does not back the V's morals on what they're trying to do this entire time. In that video, I mentioned one character that has basically led the V organization and the Washu family on the longest run run in history. There's one ghoul who is theoretically known as the original One-Eyed King, or the original One-Eyed Ghoul, who came into existence and basically stirred up the entire pot. Basically, this ghoul theoretically tried to rule over the other ghouls, and the V organization and the Washi weren't happy with it, so instead they created the CCG in a collaborative effort to take down this one ghoul. However, I believe their efforts were in vain, and for this ghoul to escape and kind of keep himself alive, he mass cannibalized on ghouls underground, or at least mass cannibalized and then went underground to hibernate. This is what I think the Naga Serpent is. If you go back and look for those Ayato chapters, he comes across children that were very scared about a being that would come and eat them, basically, for no apparent reason. And we've seen this massive picture of this tumor-like being known as the Naga Serpent, who was basically slithering through this town underground and destroying absolutely everything. In hindsight, if the original One-Eyed King is the Naga Serpent, which I believe that kind of makes sense in a lot of different ways, it's kind of inevitable that this Naga Serpent, or this original One-Eyed King, may potentially face off with Kaneki being in this massive dragon form. It would make more sense that Furuta has created Kaneki for the purpose of fighting the original One-Eyed King. And if you do want to hear more of my thoughts on that theory, you should really go check out my Why Kaneki Turned into Dragon theory video, basically. So in the upcoming chapters, we should expect something very big between potentially these two opponents, the Naga Serpent and the original One-Eyed King. You're probably wondering, why would these two fight to begin with? And I believe it's just because they're out of control. And to kind of keep themselves alive, they have to continue to absorb and obviously eat other ghouls. And it seems like prime pickings when you think about it. If the Naga Serpent is trying to keep himself alive for all this time, Kaneki would be a very good target. In saying that, that would kind of correlate to some sort of thought process, and I'm not really sure if the Naga Serpent is completely out of control, or if it's just a mass abundance of RC cells, or if someone's literally controlling it, if the original One-Eyed King is literally able to move every single individual piece, basically, which I kind of find very hard to believe, but you never really know. I see a very massive confrontation between these two beings, which kind of leads everyone on this massive war, basically, like a big path of destruction, and maybe only one of them can be redeemable in hindsight. But I can see the V organization, the CCG, the Washu, and even the ghouls kind of, I don't want to say collaborate together, but basically all sit on the same seat when it comes to the effects of these two massive beings. These beings that can basically disrupt the world and destroy the world, potentially, if they continue living. This kind of falls under Furuta's super piece as well. I haven't really thought about how, I guess, the fight between Kaneki and this Naga Serpent would potentially go down, but if by any means Furuta has some sort of plan in this, if he's trying to create Kaneki to kill this other being to some degree, then realistically Furuta has something already in play. These two massive beings are going to meet up in some way, shape, or form and obliterate each other to a certain degree, basically all being puppets to Furuta and the V organization's game. This is a big thing, right? Because since the beginning of the story, and I can't emphasize this enough, the V organization have been wanting the One-Eyed King title, and it's never really explained why. The One-Eyed King title may only just be a baseless thing. It doesn't really hold much weight in hindsight, but realistically, it changes the commanding order, I believe, for ghouls around the world. A good example of this is Kaneki becoming the One-Eyed King and everyone flocking to him and worshipping him as a god. Even though Kaneki up to that point never done anything politically massive, he never made a massive move on the CCG, he never made a massive move on the Washu or the V organization or anything, they just knew. By the spread of words and maybe smaller actions, people came to flock around Kaneki and worship him as this higher being, as this title, as this king. Imagine all these people worshipping Kaneki and following every single order Kaneki does, but replace Kaneki with the V organization. Imagine how many people the V organization could control. The V organization could control the world if they had this seemingly pointless One-Eyed King title that for some reason holds so much weight for the ghoul world. If this is a fight that Furuta has been planning, or the V organization has been planning for quite some time, you kill two kings with one stone. You kill the current One-Eyed King, and you kill the previous, or the original, quote-unquote, One-Eyed King. And that title would naturally float, I believe, back to the V organization, and they would claim that they are the people to take down this massive beings, and every single faction, that has witnessed this destructive power of the original One-Eyed King, this Naga Serpent potentially, and Dragon or Kaneki, will flock to the V organization and basically bow down at their feet for saving them. Thus, the V organization can control everything, and maybe that's what they've wanted since the beginning, to be able to manipulate, control, and destroy everything if they wanted to. The question comes down to who wins between the Naga Serpent and Kaneki as this dragon form. How far does this fight go? Like, do innocent people start getting involved? Does Tokyo and humans start getting destroyed because these two massive serpents are fighting it out for no apparent reason, maybe for the chance to eat one another, or because they can't control themselves, or they see each other as threats? I don't know, but I am expecting a fight like this to unravel, and this can easily change and manipulate in any way, shape, or form, but I feel like it's so very convenient. It's all kind of meshing together really, really well. Like, why mention the original One-Eyed King after all this time and then showcase this massive Naga Serpent, this being that is destroying underground cities and cannibalizing on ghouls, and then have Kaneki go through the exact same process and becoming a monster just like that? It's like putting two Godzillas together just so they could kill and destroy each other. And in hindsight, if Kaneki defeats the original One-Eyed King, defeats this Naga Serpent, I personally believe that the Ogai Squad members, being conveniently made by Dr. Kanao and with Furuta spearheading that operation, that in hindsight, those Ogai Squad members could potentially end up killing Kaneki from the inside, whether they act as some sort of virus or an explosion, or like we've seen them frame out. You know, maybe if they frame out enough and injure Kaneki from the inside, because they've all kind of morphed together into this one conglomerate, it kills Kaneki. So in hindsight, you have two Godzillas killing each other. Either both of them die or one of them dies. So you have one victor, which I believe would be Kaneki. But then in the end, you have this virus or this thing that Godzilla has eaten that ends up killing him from the inside and destroying his body, basically. It may not kill Kaneki to the fullest extent, but I believe it would severely weaken him, so maybe Furuta can use Kaneki as a weapon in the future, or, you know, try and do this all over again. I don't know. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very excited for the upcoming chapters. We have some very big stuff moving in Tokyo Ghoul Re. So far, everything we know about the V organization, I believe, is going to come steamrolling out sooner or later, with the supposed death of Furuta, because that in itself seems very sus in a lot of different ways. I feel like our questions regarding the V organization will soon be answered. We'll soon shed some light on the original One-Eyed King, the Naga Serpent, and potentially V and Furuta's overall plan and goal. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching, but I'm actually going to end the video off here. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.